Grab your drinks and have a seat. It's time for serial killers.
Second time's a charm.
Yellow.
Hi, we just recorded.
We need to hire somebody.
No, we didn't record.
Yes, we need to hire somebody.
No. We literally just did about a half an hour, maybe 20 minutes, which, of this episode. And Jay looks at me and I could just tell on his face, he didn't hit record.
Yeah.
So we're here again. It's not again for you, but it's again for us.
But guess what I'm still drinking?
What are you drinking?
Shout out to Milo's. Big time. Calorie. What is it?
Sugar free.
No, it says it's no calorie
sweet tea.
Sweet tea from Milo's.
Because we all know Jared doesn't like to drink tea that doesn't have sugar because he doesn't want to taste like dirt.
But this stuff is great.
Yeah, if you have never heard of Milo's, we are not sponsored or anything. We have just found something that works really well for Jay. We have found a sweet tea that's great for Jay because he was drinking a lot of sweet tea when we were on vacation, and they drink Milo's tea. And I don't personally like tea that is pre-made like that. However, Milo's is it is the only tea that I would actually buy that is not freshly made. Like for myself, I make sun tea, but it tastes the same as sun tea to me. But he drinks sweet tea and he was drinking a lot of it. And the whole time I was just like, bro, you need to watch your sugar. And then he happened to go to the store and found that they had this no calorie sweet tea. And he was like, I'll try it. And he loved it.
Tastes just as good.
He thinks it tastes just as good. So if you're a sweet tea drinker, but you don't want the calories and the sugar, you should try the Milo sweet tea. And if you like regular tea, but you don't want to make it, you should try the regular Milo's tea, the unsweetened version. It is going to be found pretty much at most of the grocery stores. And you're going to find it in the refrigerator section near the juices. Like that's where it's going to be. It's like cold and you keep it refrigerator. It looks like a milk jug, but it's tea. So that's what JB drinking today.
Yep. And if anybody for some weird reason knows the Milo people or works there or is connected with them, tell them their tea is fucking amazing.
And as far as I am drinking, I'm actually just drinking some regular iced tea that I made in the sun. But I'll be honest with you, the tea bags aren't it right now. So I will probably be getting some Milo's tea for myself, but not the sweet version. So yes, shout out to Milo's. We don't know you. You don't know us, but your tea fucking rocks.
Well, we be drinking it.
But we are not.
You know who's not drinking it?
Who?
The guy we're talking about.
Oh, okay. So who are we talking about today who's not drinking Milo's iced tea? That would be Henry Lee Lucas. Now, Henry Lee Lucas is known as the Confession Killer, or also known as the Highway Stalker. He has 11 or more victims.
How many more?
But I will side note this and tell you that in the book, it did say 11 to 600. Now, I didn't put the 600 because it is found out later that he did not actually commit the 600 that he supposedly said he did. They have been able to debunk some of the ones that he's confessed to.
I feel like he's like trying to be the Robin Hood of serial killers. He's like, hey, I'm already fucked, so I'm going to take credit for a bunch of people's stuff so they can keep on killing.
No, but you'll kind of find out. You'll kind of find out why he does it. He kind of does say why he does it. So the murder dates are 1960 to 1983. His location of these murders are Michigan, Texas, Louisiana, California, and New York. And his method of murder is various ways of murder. And the characteristics are cannibalism and necrophilia. Now, Henry is born August 23rd, 1936 in Blacksburg, Virginia. Now, his mother is a woman named Nellie Viola Lucas, and she's an asshole. She's a member of the Chippewa tribe, and she is a severe alcoholic, and she actually has 7 children. So Henry is one of 7 children. Now, the thought is that Henry and one of his other siblings have different fathers than the other 5. And the man that they believe was Henry's father, or the man that Henry believed his father was a man named Anderson Lucas. Now, Anderson is a double amputee who lost his legs in a freight train accident. By accident, I'm pretty sure. I read that he was drinking and fell asleep on the tracks and got run over by a train.
That would be the worst way to wake up.
100%. Now, this resulted in him being nicknamed No Legs. Which, what
Come on,
the
people.
fuck?
Like,
That's not even funny.
be original.
But that's not even funny.
No, it's not. But be original. Like, No Legs. Like, come up with something better.
Well, I kept thinking about every time I read it, I was like, no nose, because we call Voldemort from Harry Potter no nose. And so that's what I kept thinking of. But I'm just like, that's not nice. We don't say that kind of stuff to people. Now, it was also stated that Nellie had been a prostitute and Anderson was actually labeled as her pimp.
You think its pimp name was like Wheels or something?
Now, Henry says, though, no, so here we have this idea of who Anderson is. Although Henry says, no, my father was basically a lazy piece of shit, did nothing other than sell pencils. So I don't know if he really was a pimp or not.
Which is such a weird job to be like,
well,
I'm a pencil seller.
back in the day, if
you're not going door to door.
No, but I'm saying back in the day, there wasn't probably a lot of jobs he could have done, because you think about it, back in the day,
Yeah, probably
people
like
in wheelchairs,
in the office type of thing.
Well, not even that. They didn't have wheelchair accessibility like things. They didn't have the ADA to protect people to be able to go into buildings. So like he probably struggled finding work after the freight train incident. It was also reported that Nellie would sometimes perform sexual acts with her clients in front of her children and her husband and force them to watch. It gets worse.
The husband
and
the children.
Her children would be forced to watch her work with her clients. Now, when Henry was 8 years old, his mother beat him in the head with a wooden plank, which caused him to be in a coma for 3 days.
Damn.
Now, at the age of 10, Henry develops an infection in his eye after he got into a fight. Now, the story goes that he got into his fight with his brother, and his brother reportedly stabbed him in the eye area. And his mother, because she's such a fucking winner, was like, I don't know what to do about it, and ignored the injury.
Rub some dirt on it. Now,
he actually at some point gets in trouble at school, and the teacher like swipes him with a steel-tipped ruler. Whatever. They used to whip the shit out of kids in schools. I don't know if she smacked the shit out of him or whatever, but it doesn't sound like she smacked him. It sounds like
him.
Yeah, it sounds like she was like walking by and was like, psh, stop, right? Well, she happens to hit his eye, and it actually makes his eyeball explode. And then he has to go to the hospital, and his eyeball is surgically removed.
You think it scarred the teacher? Or the teacher
Oh
was
my
just
God.
like, you fuck
What about
around,
the whole
you find
fucking-
out.
No, just think of the whole class. You're fucking
Yeah.
your whole class is like scarred for life.
Well, I guarantee that class was on perfect behavior for the rest of
Oh
the
yeah,
year.
because they probably thought, oh shit.
Nope, she gonna fucking poke my eye out.
So he does end up getting a glass eye in its place. Okay, so he didn't, he got a glass eye. Now, there were also reports that Nellie would make Henry cross-dress in public. So she would dress him up as a little girl, and she would bring him out and make people make fun of him. She forced him to go to school dressed up in girls' clothes. And then it also came out that a little bit later in life, like after she stopped cross-dressing him, she would pimp him out to men and women. Because she's a fucking winner. She's such a good mom. Now, his school teachers actually get sick and tired of him coming to school dressed as a girl because he's getting made fun of, because he doesn't like it. You can see it in his face, that they actually tell her, like, listen, no, it's not appropriate. To which she's like, fuck you, I can do what I want. He's my son. They actually had to get a court order to get him to get her to stop dressing him like a girl. And she did comply with this. She did comply when the courts told her, bitch, stop. However, Henry did continue to be abused by his mother on the regular. Now, sometimes it was physical, sometimes it was sexual, sometimes it was verbal. An example of this is there was one time where she actually shot and killed a mule that was given to him by his uncle. So it was his mule. It was his baby. Not that I would want a mule, but it was his anyways. And so she kills it basically as a mind fuck and then beats him because she has to pay somebody to clean up the carcass.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Like, that's what the fuck. Now, before we go any further, I want to reiterate something before we go any further. I am not telling you his horrific fucking childhood to make people be like, oh, poor Henry. That's not the point. The point is that I need people to understand that not every serial killer is a sociopath who was born a sociopath. They're just not. There is the nature versus nurture debate. And to be honest with you, I personally believe that there's a little bit of both in pretty much every criminal or every serial killer. Very rarely do I see somebody that's a serial killer. I'm like, yep, they were just born bad. Normally those people did have terrible childhoods as well. So it's just different. But this childhood is fucking off the charts. The shit he dealt with, I don't know how anybody could have come out even remotely normal. It doesn't excuse the fact that he became a serial killer. And I'm not saying that like, oh, we should feel bad for Henry because his mom was a piece of shit. No. What I'm saying is when it comes to him getting arrested or whatever, when he comes to him getting sentenced and all the things that happen, sometimes those things have to be taken into account because I truly think that had he not been ridiculously, viciously, and horrifically abused by his mom, I would venture to guess that he probably would not have turned out to be a serial killer. There is he didn't have like bad behavior or anything weird until he got a little bit older, like into his like adolescence. And that was after years of massive abuse from his mom. So again, as we say, we don't use mental health or your shitty upbringing for an excuse for your bad behavior. We don't. And I'm not. He's still going to have consequences. But what I'm saying is it's an explanation as to why he turned out the way he did, meaning he may have been different had he not suffered this life. That's all I'm saying. And I want people to understand because I always feel like people think, oh, she's just trying to excuse a serial killer and trying to, make it seem like they should whatever. I'm not. I'm literally telling you his background so that maybe you as a person can understand like how horrific that would be. It doesn't matter because he wasn't born like that. He was created like that. And sometimes people are created. And I actually, on Crime Bitches, if you haven't listened to Crime Bitches yet, go listen to us because it's me and my daughter. But if you listen to our last week's episode, which is the Bathtown Massacre, this man blows some shit up and they go to his farm and they find a sign that he created on his farm that says, criminals are not born, they are made. And it's because this man, what he did, he was a stellar, he was a fucking frugal bitch, but he was a stellar person pretty much. And he ends up blowing up a bunch of shit because he was fed up. So he basically, his point was, I would never have done this if you drove me to it, kind of. And that's honestly how I feel about Henry. I feel like Henry might have actually been a semi-normal person had he not suffered so much fucking abuse from his mom. And because it wasn't just, oh, he got his ass beat. It was massive amounts of physical abuse, sexual abuse,
no, it is deep trauma,
emotional abuse, mental abuse. It was so much fucking traumatic shit that happened to this man that the only way his brain could comprehend with it is honestly to kill people. Again, not an excuse, just an explanation. So please don't ever think I'm excusing their behavior because I'm not. I still think he's a piece of shit, but I can feel bad for the piece of shit for the upbringing he had. Anyways, moving on. Henry himself actually said, and I quote, I hated all my life. I hated everybody. When I first grew up and can remember, I was dressed as a girl by my mother, and I stayed that way for 2 or 3 years. And after that, I was treated like what I call the dog of the family. I was beaten. I was made to do things that no human being would want to do. Now, in December of 1949, Henry's father dies of pneumonia. after being drunk and staying outside overnight in a blizzard. I think
Well,
Anderson
that'll
should.
happen.
I think Anderson should have stopped drinking after the train accident. To be honest with you.
No shit.
Now, during the 6th grade, Henry actually drops out of school and he runs away from home. Good choice. You got no other choices at this point.
Surprised it took that long for him to get out.
Now, he ends up traveling basically throughout Virginia. So he skips town, travels throughout Virginia. And during his adolescence, he actually engages in a sexual relationship with his half-brother. And he also had engaged in bestiality. And then he would kill the animals afterwards. So by the time he was like in, 12, 13 years old.
He was doing some fucked up shit.
He was doing some shit that most people would think would be a precursor to a serial killer, especially with killing animals. So you can definitely see there's like a shift in what he's doing. Now on June 10th of 1954, he's 18 years old and he is actually convicted of more than a dozen burglaries and is sentenced to 4 years in prison. Then in 1957, he actually escapes from prison, but he is caught 3 days later. But he did escape.
It's a short run.
He does end up getting released though in September of 1959. So he served roughly 4.5 years in prison. So like, how do you escape and only get like an extra 6 months onto your sentence? That's a little weird. But anyways,
They were like, look, you were only gone for 3 days.
so now we're going to jump backwards a little bit because we're going to start with the murders. But I just wanted to give you like a full background all the way up till, he was 18 years old. So you kind of have an idea of who we're talking about. So according to Henry, at the age of 14 years old, he actually claims to have committed his first murder. Now, in 1951, he is said to have strangled a girl named Laura Burnsley, who was 17 years old at the time, after she refused to have sex with him. Now, she disappeared from a bus stop in Lynchburg, Virginia, and he said that he buried her body in a secluded wooded area near Harrisburg, Virginia. However, he later recants this confession, which you will find kind of becomes a pattern of his.
He's like, ha, just kidding.
Yeah. However, Laura has never been found. Her body was never found. She was never found alive, whatever. So I don't know if he just like randomly found this chick that was missing and he was like, oh, I killed her. Or there's a chance he really did kill her. And then he just later was like, nope, I did not. So I don't know when he recanted. I don't know if it was like when they started to find out that there were other ones that he had done that he said he did or whatever. I don't know. But supposedly he says now that he did not do it. Now, January 11th of 1960, Henry and his mother get into an argument. Now, at this time, Henry is actually living in Michigan with his sister, and his mom, Nellie, is visiting. She's visiting quite often. And every time she visits, there's arguments between her and him. And part of it is because Nellie does not like Henry's fiance. And the other part of it is she wants Henry to move back to Virginia to live with her, to help her, to take care of her. Because
He's like, no, bitch.
she is 71
You
years
beat
old.
my ass
Exactly.
and poke my eye
Like,
out.
who are you, lady? You are literally the worst. And now you're like, please come take care of me. And it's not even a please. It's like, you're going to fucking come live with me and take care of me.
Oh, I'd show up, and when she got sick, I'd be like, rub some dirt
Like,
on
I'm
it.
just like, I don't know. Like, ugh. So what he claims happens is he claims that their argument on this one specific day turned violent because she hit him over the head with a broom. I totally believe it.
Yeah.
I totally believe it. By the way, that reminds me listen, we live in a good neighborhood, but sometimes people be having problems. And that reminds me of our neighbors who live behind us.
Yeah.
We heard yelling one day and we go
The
outside.
flower pot.
We
Like,
go outside and it's like a lady and her two sons. And her sons are adults and they're fighting. Her sons are fighting. And they're like throwing like a flower pot at each other. They're like boxing. And the lady, the mom, comes out the house with a fucking broom and starts
whacking 'em.
swinging on the boys and yelling at them. And I'm just sitting there like, these are all full-fledged
yeah.
adults.
We were just sitting on our deck eating
Oh my
popcorn.
God.
Like, woohoo.
I literally turned to Jane. I was like, how fucking trashy are we? Like, I was like, what? Not because we were watching, but what? Keep your shit inside your house if you're going to. I mean, you're adults. Chill out. Anyway, and it's one of them was drunk, and that was like the whole thing, but it was just hilarious because I was like, I didn't know if we should be like, get him. Like, who do we root for type thing?
Yeah,
I didn't
I'm
know.
glad they're gone. There's definitely some
Yeah, we have
problems there.
we have new neighbors now. They have little kids, so it's fine. Anyways, so he says she hit me in the head with a broom, so in retaliation, I stabbed her in the neck.
That's a good escalation.
Sorry, it's not funny. I cope like this. Please understand that it's not funny. It is not funny to stab somebody in the neck. This is my coping mechanism. Okay, I laugh at the weirdest things. After he stabs her in the neck, he flees. He thinks he killed her, so he's like, I'm out. So he leaves the house. Well, Henry's sister comes home not very long after this incident, because he was by himself. Not very long after this incident happens, and she finds Nellie alive but dying, and she calls for help. But by the time the help comes, Nellie is pronounced dead. Now, Henry actually gets arrested in Michigan on an outstanding warrant during that time. So he's doing shit in Michigan. He gets arrested on this outstanding warrant. But while they have him there, they're kind of like, hey, listen, so your mom was stabbed in the neck and died. Do you know anything about that? And he's just like, actually, yes, I do. She hit me in the head with a broom, so I stabbed her in self-defense.
I shanked the bitch.
Now, what he said was, I've got gashes in the back of my head. I've got black and blue marks on my body from being beaten every day. If I didn't do something she wanted, I got beaten. So that's, again,
it's a build up to it.
I was just going to say, this is maybe in the moment she was 71 years old and whatevs, but this was kind of built up of all the years of abuse. I'm sure that had something to do with it. Now, his claim is ultimately denied because she's a 71-year-old woman who probably maybe swung a broom on him, but 71, and I don't think she was a fitness guru. I don't think she was swinging that hard.
Boom.
Yeah, I don't think she was swinging that hard. And so he is charged and he is found guilty of second-degree murder, and he is sentenced to 40 years in prison. What? Well, how did he kill so
How'd all
many
the murders
people
happen?
if he's spending 40 years in prison, considering he's 24 years old? If he served 40 years, he'd be 64 fucking years old when he got out of prison, right? That's what we're supposed to do, right? That's the prison system, right?
Nope. Got out before he
Oh.
was 30.
Well, while he's in prison, he actually attempts suicide several times. Now, his claim is he was mistreated terribly. He was threatened and all these things. And so he tried to take his own life. And because of this, he had actually slashed his wrists and stomach different times with a razor, trying to kill himself. They end up transferring him to the Ionia State Hospital, which I think at that point, that's probably the best move. However, while he's there, he is treated with electric shock therapy and behavior therapy, and he was given heavy doses of antidepressants. Sidebar, I'm not a proponent of shock therapy. It is something that they still do use in some of their therapeutic things, and I learned about it when I was in college, and it fucking repulsed the shit out of me. So just letting y'all know, I am not a proponent for electric shock therapy, but I do know that it gets used. So he ends up actually spending 4 years at that state hospital before returning to prison in 1966. So think about this for a minute. He was arrested in 1960, was tried, convicted, so probably 61. He spent 4 years in that hospital, which means he was only in prison for maybe a year before he went, to the state hospital. Then he gets returned in 1966. Now, he ends up getting released from prison on June 3rd, 1970. So 10 years. Due to overcrowding. So overcrowding. So he served 10 years.
Let the murderer out.
Of his 40-year sentence, and you chose to let the fucking murderer out for overcrowd. You're telling me there was nobody else that you could have let go? You're telling me the man who murdered his mother, that's the one you chose to let go. Well, you made the wrong choice, because this man goes on to kill a lot more people. So good on you, justice system, for sucking ass. Now, 1971. So he's been out of jail for a little over a year, not even a full year. Henry is charged with attempting to abduct 3 schoolgirls and is convicted. Hold on now. We've got a man who is 40-year sentence for murdering his mother was let out after 10 years. Now he's been convicted for trying to abduct 3 schoolgirls. I feel like he should just stay in jail forever. He is released in 1975. He literally did 4 years. 4 years. That's it for trying to abduct 3 schoolgirls. Now, upon his release, he actually ends up marrying a family friend that he had kind of been connecting with in the prison, because that's what you do. You connect with the fucking worst of the worst prisoners. And he ends up connecting with that woman. They get married when he gets out of jail, and they go off and live their married life. However, 2 years later, he actually leaves due to accusations that he was sexually abusing her stepdaughter. I don't know what else you expected. First of all, shame on you for letting that man in your house. So in 1976, he meets a man named Otis Toole. Does that sound familiar to anybody else?
We've talked about him before.
Nope, we haven't talked about him. No, we haven't talked about him. However, he is a serial killer. And we will most definitely do Otis Toole. I am half tempted to switch up next week's episode to Otis Toole because these guys kind of go hand in hand, whereas normally I randomly pick. But I'm thinking I might just do Otis Toole because it just makes sense to do Otis Toole after him. And here's why. So he meets Otis Toole. Now, by 1978, Otis Toole and Henry Lee Lucas are literally living together in Jacksonville, Florida with Otis's parents, with his mother in particular. Now, there were rumors that they were lovers and there was they hung out all the time. And while he lived in Florida, he actually was working as a roofer and he also fixed cars. He was kind of doing it right. Well, or so we thought. Now, during this time that he is friends with Otis, he also becomes friends with Otis's niece, whose name was Frida Becky Powell. And he becomes kind of close to her as well. He's just kind of in the whole family. Now, during this time, he also, later in life, he also claims that he had killed many, many people in multiple states with Otis Toole, saying that the two of them together were killing together. Okay. And he said that him and Otis, they focused mainly on hitchhikers, sex workers, and migrants.
So the people that they feel won't be missed.
Yeah, really, truly. However, it is later discovered that in a large majority of the murders that he claimed that he had done, there was literally no way he actually could have done them, at all. And the ones specifically with Otis Toole, they were no, you weren't even in the area when that person was killed. So how the fuck did you do that? It was he was taking credit, not credit for Otis Toole's murders, but credit for shared credit with Otis Toole. Now in 1982, Frida, which is again Otis's niece, she is actually put into a state care after her mom dies. And she's I don't even think she's 18 years old. I think she's 16 or something at the time, or 15. She's 15 or 16 at the time. And Henry ends up convincing her to run away with him and live on the road. So he's hey, let's sneak you out of the state hospital. You live with me. Let's travel together. Yeah. Now, they end up moving to California, and they actually end up working for a woman named Kate Rich, who is an 82-year-old woman. Now, I will say really quick, because this is why I'm interested to do Otis Toole, because what I don't understand is if if Frida went into a state hospital, was Otis Toole already arrested for the murders? That, I don't know when Otis Toole... I don't know when he killed, and I don't know when he got arrested. So I'm sitting here going, well, where did Otis Toole go? Why is he no longer in the picture? And the only thing I can think of is maybe he was caught. Maybe he got caught by then or something. I don't know. So they go and they start working for this woman named Kate Rich. Now, Kate actually ends up kicking them out of her home, kicking her out of her business because she accuses them of stealing money. So the two end up hitchhiking together. And as they're hitchhiking, there's this guy who pulls up, and he happens to be a minister of a religious commune. No, it wasn't Manson, but I did think that would be a fucking twist to the story if it was.
He's just connecting with them all.
As I
He's
was
like, look, I got a big network of serial killers.
well, as I was like researching, I was like, wait a minute. He gets picked up by a hitchhike. I mean, he's hitchhiking and some guy comes up who's a religious commune, which was I know that Manson wasn't religious, but he had a commune. And I was like, damn, that'd be some shit. But no, it's not. So the minister actually thinks that the two of them are married. And so because he thinks they're married, he tells them like, you guys can stay on the commune because, you know, I can get you some work. We can do stuff together. You know, you're more than welcome. And so he actually gets Henry a job as a roofer. Like, and that's what Henry does. Now, not too long after they get onto this commune, Frida disappears. Now, according to Henry, she got homesick and she left. Like she hitched a ride back to home. And that was it. In June 1983, so this is a year later, Henry is actually arrested for the unlawful possession of a firearm. He is in custody for 4 days. And during the 4 days he's in custody, he admits to killing Kate Rich and Frida Powell. I have no idea why. I do. Actually, I lie. Never mind. I do. Now, he claims that he lured Frida to an isolated field in Denton, Texas on August 23rd, 1982, and that he stabbed her in the chest. He engaged in necrophilia with her corpse, then dismembered her body and scattered her remains. Then he says that on September 16th, 1982, so like not even like a couple weeks later, he actually goes to Kate Rich and says, I don't know where Frida went. I would love if you would come help me find where she went. She has some mental issues and I need to take care of her. So he's like, I think she's at this campground. Would you come help me? And Kate was like, yes, I'll come help you look for her. So Kate follows him to the campground and it's there that he stabs her in the chest, which kills her. He carves an inverted cross into her chest, engages in necrophilia with her, then stuffs her body in a drainage pipe. Then he goes on, after he tells the police this, he goes on to confess to a fuck ton of murder cases. And initially, the investigators actually thought that he was the credible person to hold accountable for all these murders that he supposedly was admitting to. Now, November of 1983, so this is like 5 months later, he is transferred to a jail in Williamson County, Texas, where he continues to confess to multiple unsolved murders, like all the time. Like, I got another one. I killed this person and another one, right? Now, he ends up writing a letter to the Texas Rangers and he says, I have killed for the past 10 years and no one will believe me. I cannot go on doing this. I also killed the only girl I ever loved, which to me makes me think that he's referencing Frida maybe when he says that. Now, some of the murders that he claimed to have done but was not actually convicted of were Laura Burnley, who was 17, Naomi Miller, who was 54, Deborah Sue Williamson, who was 18, Vicki Lee Schneider, who was 19, Tammy Jo Alexander, who was 16, Mildred H. McKinney, who was 73, Beverly Luttrell, who was 46, Dion Marie Wilkinson, who was 22, Estella Montoya, and Ruth Kaiser, who was 79. Now, in the end of all this, Henry is actually convicted of 11 murders and was sentenced to death. However, later, his death sentence is commuted to a life sentence. So they take the death penalty away and they commute it to a life sentence. Then on March 12th of 2001, Henry Lucas dies from heart failure at the age of 64. He is buried in an unmarked grave in Captain Joe Bird Cemetery in Huntsville, Texas, because of vandalism.
Because people would fuck up his grave.
Do you want the shots?
Oh, 100%.
Okay. His head trauma and his eye trauma have both shown, so they were able to like look in his brain and shit. They both showed that he had suffered brain damage for both incidences. So when his mom beat him in the head with the wooden plank, and when he got stabbed, they both damaged his brain. He had abnormalities in his frontal lobe, his temporal lobe, and other parts of his brain that linked to emotional control. It was also found later that he had damage to his corpus callosum as well. So he had a lot of brain damage, which again Had he not been abused by his mom? This is why I'm saying when you can actually physically see somebody's brain damage, especially in the areas of the brain where it helps you with emotional control, it's very hard to look at them and be like, oh, they still would have been a serial killer had they not been abused. No,
Right.
I just don't buy it. Now, police also thought that they could corroborate at least 28 of the murders that he had been confessing to. They actually created this thing called the Lucas Task Force because of it. So Henry Lucas, they created this task force because they were like, hold on. Like, he's telling us about these unsolved murders, and like literally right now, 28 of them, we're pretty fucking sure he did them.
Yeah. So how many more?
So
actually
let's create this task force and let's really work with him and let's fucking close these cases. One of the murders that he was convicted of was a case of a woman known as Orange Socks. Now, he had confessed to this murder, but it was shown in court that his confession, which was on video, so they showed his video confession in court, they had seen that it looked like as they were watching it, it had been stopped or altered or cut somehow. And so then they started saying, well, we're pretty sure that he was coached on what to say. He then later claims that he only confessed to the murder of Orange Socks because he thought it would be a way to commit legal suicide because he said it was a guaranteed way to get the death penalty.
But they commuted it and gave him life.
Well,
So he was trying to go for the death penalty,
yes.
and they're like, not so fast.
Yes. Now, it was later determined that it is actually highly unlikely that he was involved in that murder. So that's one that I don't know if he was convicted for that one or not. I think that's one that he actually was convicted of. But basically, no, he did not do it. But he said he did. Now, Henry, again, later in life, after showing the police where the remains of Frida and Kate were. So first of all, he showed them where the remains are. So you know for sure he killed them. And you know for sure he at least killed his mom. So that's at least 3 people. And I'm pretty sure he killed the 17-year-old girl when he was 14. So that's for sure 4. But there's no way that he killed just those 4 because he liked to kill people. So he obviously killed people, just not as many as he claimed that he did. This is why I'm saying it's hard to fucking know what this man's doing. So he had showed the police where Frida and Kate were when he confessed to them a long time ago, right? Not a long time ago, but when he confessed them. Years later, Henry said, well, I didn't actually kill them. I didn't have anything to do with their murders.
I just saw the bodies
and they're
knew where
like,
they were.
Bro, like, you fucking showed us where their bodies were. Like, of course you did. And he's like, no, I did not. Now, again, he confesses and then recants, and he confesses and then recants. Like, he did this shit a lot to a lot of murders, which is why I'm saying I'm pretty fucking sure he killed the 17-year-old girl as well. Overall, Henry confesses to upwards of 600 murders. That is how many murders he fucking confessed to. That's why the number was 600.
But that's a lot to have knowledge about.
Oh, you'll get there. I mean, we can get there. However, most of these ended up being deemed as not credible. First of all, think about this. If he was friends with Otis Toole, he probably knows Otis Toole killed. And Otis Toole, from my understanding, killed at least 15 people. So he took credit for killing 15 women with Otis Toole when he did not do that. So he did that. You've got to also remember he didn't get captured until 1980 something or 85 or whatever, 83. And so you got to think about all the times that he was obsessed with murder, whether he was doing it or not. Anytime somebody would go missing, and think about this, part of his time was in California. And this happens to be what the 70s and 80s is where there was
serial killers.
Yeah, there was how many? Like 5 serial killers at once in California. So my guess would be that he was taking credit for other serial killers' murders because he would read about them. He would read about bodies that were found, and he would be in jail, and he would watch on the TV, and when he would see something, he'd go, oh, that was me. Oh, that body was from me. Like, that's what he would do, and then he'd make up some fucking thing. Now, the reason that these ended up being not credible is because in particular for like one of them, or not one of them, I guess for a handful of the murders that he claimed that he did, they discovered that Henry would have had to travel roughly 11,000 miles in a month with his 13-year-old Ford station wagon to commit the murders he was saying he did, which is damn near impossible. So they were like, well, how the fuck did you drive 11,000 miles in a month? First of all, that's a lot in a month anyways. That's what people drive in a year. So how did you drive that much in a month, not be seen by anybody at all in your fucking old ass station wagon? And also, how did you get to these places so quickly to kill and do these things and move somewhere else? Like, that doesn't make sense.
It's got warp speed.
And then another part of it, years later, like not currently, but like in the 90s and 2000s, DNA started coming into these, right? There was quite a few where the DNA ruled him out as a suspect. It's not that they could find out who it was, but they had DNA compared to him as like, no, the fuck, you did not do this. So the fact that Henry had confessed to so many murders and then it was discovered that he just could not have possibly done them put a really negative look on the Texas police after this, because they were like, what the fuck? Like, why would you believe this man? Like, you obviously didn't do your research. Now, in particular, it was actually believed that the Texas police had used his confessions just to clear cases off their books, knowing that his confessions were not credible or even possible. So that became a big problem because people were like, hold on, like just this much research, just a tiny bit of research would have showed you he was lying and you didn't even bother to do it.
No, because at the time it's like, look how many cases we cleared. All this stuff is off our
Do you want to know how many
now.
cases they cleared by his
74.
Close. 213.
Forgot to carry the one.
So they actually cleared a total of 213 cases, attributing them all to Henry when evidence said completely otherwise. They just said, even though they didn't bother to really look into it, they just were like, oh, cool. So 213 people who were killed, the way I look at it is 213 people were falsely told who their loved ones were falsely told who killed their family member. And probably that has never been fixed, right? That's never been fixed. Now, also, never mind the fact. So you talk about the confessions. Why did he do this, right? Like, what was he doing? Well, it doesn't help that while he was making the confessions, he had a really good living situation. He received cigarettes whenever he wanted. He got strawberry milkshakes. He had TV privileges. He had unescorted trips outside of jail.
I'll keep singing if you keep giving.
And he had access to medications and drinks whenever he wanted to. So they literally gave him a cushy ass prison life as long as he continued to admit to murders. So he's got life in prison. At the time, he thought he was going to be a death penalty. And then when it was commuted, I mean, wouldn't you? If this is how you were being treated, like fucking royalty almost, prison royalty.
Surprised he didn't get shanked by the other inmates, though.
Well, I think he was protected. I think he was kept by himself. So in 1999, Henry said that he was fascinated by Rafael Resendez Ramirez, which, just FYI, the other day when we were watching the true crime thing, and I said, well, that's fucking crazy. Jay and I were watching a documentary on Netflix, and it was actually about Rafael Resendez Ramirez. And I said, well, that's fucking crazy because the guy that we're talking about literally has not something to do with him, but I know who that is based off this guy. So he was fascinated. So in 99, he's in prison. And this is, again, how you're talking about. That's how many to have knowledge of. He's in prison and he knows all about Rafael Resendez Ramirez because it's all over the news. People's bodies are showing up and they're dying. Rafael Resendez Ramirez is actually, at the time, he was a fugitive that had been connected to at least 8 killings in Texas, Kentucky, and Illinois. So he was like following his story. And Henry said, and I quote, he's really playing cat and mouse with the FBI. I follow this case on TV. I'd like to meet him. If this was 1983, I'd claim these murders too. I made the police look stupid. I was out to wreck Texas law enforcement. So he's literally saying, I fucking played those guys because I fucking could. That's what he's telling them. And a final quote by Henry Lee Lucas, just to seal our episode. Henry Lee Lucas said, I have killed in every way except poisoning. There's been shootings, knifings, strangulations, and hit and runs.
In his beat ass 13-year-old
In his
station
old
wagon.
ass station wagon.
That's
So-
like Jeepers Creepers shit right there.
For real. So that is the story of Henry Lee Lucas, the confession killer, who probably didn't kill nearly as many people as he thinks he did, or he wants people to believe, because he wanted to fuck with the fucking police.
And
really
it's
is what
crazy
it comes
hear-
down to.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And he got fucking a fancy lifestyle for it.
crazy to hear even the second time around.
Well, you didn't get to hear all of
Yeah.
it. You didn't know that he was,
No.
you didn't know all that stuff. So anyways,
Thanks for listening.
yes, thank you for listening. We really genuinely appreciate you as always.
Follow us, like us, share us, tell everybody you know about us. Even if you know the Milo's people, tell them.
Especially if you know the Milo's people,
Yeah.
tell them. And genuinely, from the bottom of our hearts, I continue to see jumps in our uploads, and I don't know why, because I'm just like chilling, just doing the things I want to do. But every single week we get just a little more and a little more. And it's crazy to see that in a little over a year, how much our downloads have jumped. So
Yep,
we really,
appreciate
really do appreciate
every
it.
one of you.
Yeah, I can't even thank you enough. But other than that, thank you for listening to us talk about the confession killer and the fact that he was a liar. Until next time, goodbye.
And I'll hit you with the bye-bye.
Remember to lock your doors and bar your windows. Until next time.